so if you couldn't tell by my attire, we're talking about something that I don't really care too much about. You know, it's not an artist that I'm like really that into. I don't know him very well. Like, it's not like he's been my top artist in my Spotify Wrapped for 4 years in a row. Like, that's just not me. I didn't spend hours and hours making a cardigan with his ass on it. Like, that's just not me. But if that's you, then this cardigan is for sale on my Etsy if you're interested. Yeah, so like, just take a look. Yeah, so today we're talking about role model. If you couldn't tell, I am clearly a big role model fan. He has evolved so much over the past few years, and I'm so happy that he's finally gaining recognition for his album, Kansas Anymore, and especially his deluxe songs on that album that came out a few months ago. So today I'm going to do a track-by-track analysis of each song on Kansas Anymore Deluxe. This album is different than his other studio projects in a few different ways. This one is taking a more folky country approach. He revisits certain themes that he's talked about before, and it's mainly a breakup album. Role Model was in a long committed relationship with Emma Chamberlain, and he's made a few songs with her in the forefront. So this album was supposed to be a romantic album, but he said that he rewrote a whole bunch of the album when it was already almost fully done. So I'm just gonna list a bunch of the themes that I heard from this album, and then when we go through each track, I will point out what theme is noticeable. This album is an ode to his hometown. He talks a lot about feeling homesick and not feeling like his home in LA is home. With this, there also comes the theme of distance between him and Emma in the emotional and in the physical sense of the word. He also talks a lot about the weather, and that indicates timeline. It's not linear. It's more so how he felt the pieces of the puzzle would fit together. So when he talks about weather, when he talks about timeline, we can figure out where he's at in his story, where he's at in his life. There's also the theme of the Wizard of Oz. Kansas Anymore is a reference to the Wizard of Oz.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
And he relates that back to his feeling of homesickness. And I also wanted to touch on lyric changes. When a chorus goes through the course of a song, sometimes the chorus that you hear and recognize changes one or two of the words in the lyrics to signify growth and change. Because it's very jarring when you hear the chorus and it's ingrained in your head, and then you hear one of the words to this melody changed to something else. Let's start with track 1, Writings on the Wall. Writings on the wall, I pretend I can't read. This takes place after the breakup. He's talking to his parents about this girl, about how they're no longer together, and his parents are giving him advice and telling him how he can cope with this loss. And there's a reference to the theme of hometowns and families and weather and timeline, where he says, "Seems like your shoulder keeps getting colder. But babe, I was raised in the cold." Writings on the Wall is a fun song to introduce this album. It's upbeat, it's lighthearted, even though it's introducing the fact that he is coming back to his family after he's been with this girl for so long. Then we have a shift to track 2, Look at That Woman. This is one of the popular ones on the album, seeing as the music video itself is full of popular, beautiful women of this time. He references his hometown and how he wants to go home and his homesickness when he says, "Spend my nights all alone till I snap and buy the red-eye home." He also references the weather and gives us a hint at when he's referring to. "She was mine, got cold. Now the guilt's the only thing I hold." And another, "And I try not to call, but the leaves start to fall." And this makes sense within the timeline of the relationship because they did break up in the fall. And at this point, you can sort of see this metaphor and this relationship that he's making between Emma and the weather and how her feelings are changing as the season's changing and the weather's changing. And Look at That Woman, there's a few references to previous songs that Tucker has written. We have a reference to Blind, which is the first song that Tucker wrote about Emma Chamberlain. In Blind, he says, "She had the gold hoops, Prada of it. I'm in love with all of it. And in Look at That Woman, he says, she had the hoops, white gold, with the penny loaves covering her toes. And there's another reference to a previous song that he wrote called If Jesus Saves, She's My Type. This was on his debut album, RX. In this song, there's a lot of comparisons between falling in love, being in love, and religion. So in Look at That Woman, he says, lost my faith and my mind on the day we had to say goodbye. The fact that If Jesus Saves, She's My Type is a love song, and he's referring to religion as love. Then when he says he lost his faith on the day that they broke up, goes along with this metaphor and comparison of religion being love. Next we have track 3 called Scumbag. I'm a scumbag, I'm a setback. So in Scumbag, the bridge foreshadows the breakup when he says, you could walk on home, take me out your phone. You could leave it alone and never look on back. You could dance all night, kick me out your life, find a brand new guy and just forget what we had. Basically, this song is talking about how he thinks that he's a bad person and she's too good to be with him. And in the bridge, he lists all the things that she could do instead of being with him. And this is the first song where he does a little lyric change. In the chorus, he consistently says, yeah, you stand by me. But at the end, he says, why you stand by me? When you change it to something like that, especially when it questions what he just said, it makes us think about the way that role model sees himself in the relationship and sees his partner in the relationship and the pedestal he puts his partner on. Track 4 is called Oh Gemini. Oh Gemini, please remember my name. Oh Gemini is his first single from the album. It has the theme of distance, emotional and physical, where he says, 50 states away, but honey, I'm thinking of you. Maine to California, basically 50 states away. And there's a reference to one of his deluxe songs, Sally When the Wine Runs Out, where he says, I remember the taste of cheap red wine. I'm just pointing out these references because I want to show the interconnectedness between the album itself and the interconnectedness between this album and his previous discography. And to break this down even further, Gemini is a direct reference to Emma because Emma Chamberlain's zodiac sign is a Gemini. Next we have track 5 called Frances, which is another direct reference to Emma Chamberlain. Frances, she was amazing. Emma Chamberlain's full name is Emma Frances Chamberlain. There's references to other songs, and there's the reference to the theme of hometowns and family, where he says, but at the end of the day, what's my mother gonna say when I come home crying? This mention of his mom is also a reference to Never Let You Go, a song from RX, where he says, brought you to my family and my mama says it's definite, and Ma's glad cause I show my teeth now. In the music video for Never Let You Go, it's actually him lip-singing the lyrics to Emma Chamberlain as she's walking down the street. This song is very much a love song. He's telling the story of how Emma met his family. In Frances, when he references his mom again, he's upset about the breakup, but he's also worried about what his family is going to say after he's put so much time and energy and effort into this one person. There's also a reference to Do You See It, which is on the EP Our Little Angel. In Do You See It, he says, but I put you in the limelight just to see it better. And in Frances, he says, if I didn't push you out of the limelight. So Do You See It is not inherently about Emma Chamberlain. He wrote it before he met Emma, so the reference to this is more so about the concept of what he was writing about in the song. Do You See It is about him fantasizing a life with a girl and wondering if the girl also fantasizes about him too. So when he talks about the limelight in Frances and how he's thinking about maybe if he didn't push Emma out of the limelight, which is where her career is, then maybe they would still be together, is a reference to the fact that he saw this life with her and maybe she didn't. The next track is called Superglue. A little bit of superglue, stick by my side. Tucker is starting to see the signs of feeling distant from his family physically and distant from Emma emotionally. Even when I'm home, I ain't home, which means that when he's home in California with Emma, he doesn't feel at home because his real home is in Maine. He also says, I shouldn't have to tell you all this shit through the phone when he does eventually go home to Maine, and he's now feeling so much better. He feels bad about telling her when she's all the way back in LA. There's also a reference to Better the First Time, which is also in his EP Our Little Angel. Better the First Time is also not written about Emma because he didn't know Emma at the time, so this reference is more so to do with the concept of both of these songs rather than the person they were written about. So in Superglue, he says, "You don't smile anymore, you won't greet me at the door." And in Better the First Time, he says, "You don't smile for the pics, you won't let me in the door." These lyrics are basically the same thing. It's referencing this song where he realizes that to him, relationships always feel better in the beginning, and when things start to get real, he doesn't want to be there anymore. The next song is called The Dinner. It doesn't feel like it's about his relationship, it feels like it's about LA in general and the people that he meets in LA. There's the reference to The Wizard of Oz where he says, "I click my heels 3 times, we're not in Kansas anymore." Kansas to him is Maine, and he is now in LA. And the song also talks about hometowns and family when in the chorus he makes the declaration of "take me home" because he doesn't like it here at this dinner that has a bunch of seemingly LA influencers. He also says, "I'm the child of my mother, New England born and raised." So when he says "take me home" in the chorus, he doesn't necessarily mean take me to the home that he lives in LA. He means take me home, which is Kansas, which is Maine. I feel like every video I make, I just make the topic that I'm talking about 10 times more confusing. And then there's a reference to Forever and More, which is from RX, a love song that is about Emma. He says, "Guess it's hard to find an angel when it's hell on earth." And in Forever and More, he says, "I found an angel wearing plaid." When I was talking about the references from before, where the songs that he was referencing weren't about Emma, it was more so the concept of the song that he was referencing, and this is just a direct reference to his love songs about Emma and how he's writing about the same girl, but they're breakup songs now. The next track is called Deeply Still in Love. I'm deeply still in love. There's 2 references, one to a song in this album and one to a song just in his discography in general. There's a reference to Slut Era Interlude, where he says, "Until I called her by your name," where in Slut Era Interlude he says, "And let me call you by somebody that I used to know." There's a French outro and I just wanted to translate the words. "You know, I don't think you killed him. I think he's crazy and you feel powerful." This music video is set in a bar, and the deluxe album, the songs are about bars, and there's a lot of references to bars in general. So the fact that one of the first singles in this album has a music video that's set in a bar really set the scene for what we were about to hear and see in the realm and world of Role Models Kansas anymore. The next track is called Slut Era Interlude. I don't want you, but I want you to. Of course, this has the reference to Deeply Still in Love that I talked about in the last section, and there is also a reference to the theme of hometowns and family. He says, "Why'd you let me bring you home?" And although this could be written off as just a regretful one-night stand, I think of it as like home is a sacred place for him, and he sees his home as something that he only brings special people to. There's also a few lyric changes in this song. In the chorus, he says a few times, "Could you spend the night?" And that changes to "Come on, spend the night," to "Fuck it, spend the night." And I think that this evolution of lyrics is supposed to show his desperation for connection. In So Far Gone, so far gone, so far gone, he references his family a lot in this song through the lyrics. He says, "You're worse than my mother," pointing out flaws like it's your day job. And then, "Now I drink like my brother." And Lizzie McAlpine in the next verse says, "You're just like your father, have it your way or nothing at all." And there's also a few lyric changes in this song where it says, "You should have told me," which changes to "I wish you told me," which changes to "you could have told me." This change is just him feeling blindsided maybe by the breakup and the fact that his partner was feeling differently than he was. Then we have the next track, Slipfast. Slip fast, get carried away. This is a song that's written during the relationship where he talks about all the things that he could do and the things that he normally does when he's in a relationship, but he didn't because he felt so committed to this and he wanted it to last. But it also foreshadows what eventually did happen in the relationship, where he references his hometown and family, where he says, I could just move home, no occupation. I'm just speculating based on the lyrics themselves and my previous knowledge of the relationship and the breakup as it was in the public eye. The next song is called Compromise.
Don't you compromise.
He keeps saying you deserve a happy ever after, even if it's not the same as mine. He's talking to her directly through this song where he wants her to feel better and he wants her to have a successful relationship even though he knows it's not him. There's also some more French in the bridge that I'm going to translate as well. It says, oh love, where does it start? Where does it stop? It's so much bigger than us, actually. One day you fall asleep, stars in your eyes, the heart is full, and then you wake up with more than a memory. Was it real? Was it a dream? In fact, we will never know. And to be honest, maybe that's why love is also beautiful. I wish it to you in any case. It's a very respectful song, and because it's so respectful, it's all the more heartbreaking because he still has so much love and care for her. This next song is the last song in Kansas Anymore without the deluxe editions. It's called Something, Somehow, Someday.
Something, somehow, someday.
This song is very lyrically forward. There's just a whole story that's written out in song form. And that's what I love so much about this album. It is so focused on the lyrics and the poetry, and the way he's written out his story here is just so beautiful, even though it's so heartbreaking. This song is written as if it's from a bird's eye view, a third person perspective on the relationship and why it didn't work, and how they're so different from each other. So there's actually a reference to the GQ interview that they did together where Emma calls him a loose cannon.
He is a fucking open book,
lightly.
you guys.
I'm
No, he's a
treading
loose
lightly.
cannon. He actually is a loose
I
cannon.
am scared of the comments to come.
He says, well, he's a loose cannon, foolish man who needs some medication. The way he talks about himself in this song throughout the entire thing is very self-deprecating. And so when he talks about himself, it's in a place of insecurity and embarrassment and heartbreak. And he talks about Emma in a way that's beautiful because he is still in love with her. He's deeply still in love with her. So in this song, he talks about his hometown and how he dropped everything and moved and left his hometown for her. He says he's an East Coast jeans rolled, no communication. And he references leaving his hometown for her by describing her as a vacation and something you leave home for. She's a shoe-tied, blue-skied honeymoon vacation. She's a welcome sign. She's an open-ear souvenir, reads the situation. She's a night in Rome, and she's the plane ride home. Like, yes, this sounds so beautiful. To compare somebody to a vacation is a nice sentiment on the forefront, but when you think about a vacation, it's something that has to end. So if he initially thought of her as a vacation, deep down, he knew that it wouldn't last. He knew that he was just going to go home at the end of it. Vacations are temporary. There is some lyric changes in this as well. He starts with saying, yeah, I believe they're meant to be, to, yes, it's clear to me they're meant to be. It's just him trying to reiterate that to himself, to try to remind him that even though the distance is so hard for him, they're meant to be because he loves this girl so much and he thinks so highly of this girl. So why wouldn't they be meant to be? The next song is Old Recliners, and it's the first song that was added to the deluxe edition.
Old recliners in the yard.
This was written after the breakup. It is reminiscing on the relationship, so in the timeline it takes place in the summer, but when he's writing it, it's him talking about that in the past tense. There's a reference to Francis. In Francis, he says, the dog days, the rides home, the tall cans, the long nights. And in this song, he says, I remember when the nights were long. There's also another reference to Weather and Timeline, where he says, with the end of July in the air. And there's a lyric change as well. In the chorus, he keeps saying, thinking about you in the moment, and that changes to, it's always been you in the moment. And he constantly reiterates in this that he's still thinking about her. Even after all this time, he still can't stop thinking about her, and it's always been her, and it always will be her. Then we have Sally When the Wine Runs Out.
Sally.
Is it a reference to Emma? I don't think so. He talks about meeting a girl in a bar. And like I said, in Deeply Still in Love, the music video takes place in a bar. So I think the bar is kind of meant to represent the place that he spends the most after the relationship. So if he spent a lot of time at this bar and met a girl, it's supposed to be about a girl he met after the breakup. There is a reference to If Jesus Saves, She's My Type, which is about Emma. He says she's a born-again wild card. So if this isn't about Emma and he's talking about another girl, he's starting to get that feeling of love again because he's referencing religion, which he has previously referenced religion when talking about love. The reference to the bar is where he says, I met Sally at a late night dive bar. I love the music video for Sally When the Wine Runs Out because he says that she lives down the street past the 7-Eleven, and in the music video he's holding a fast food drink cup, which does say Sally's on it, but it looks like a cup you'd get from 7-Eleven. So I just love that. I love that little connection. I don't know if that's what he meant, but that's what I saw when I watched the video and listened to the song. Then we move on to Sun Protector,
Be sun protector.
which also feels like it takes place in a bar. It starts out with the lyric of it's closing time and I'm leaving, which makes sense because in this storyline it seems that he's staying till the bars till close. So in Sun Protector, he asks a bunch of questions to himself that he then answers in the chorus with yes I am and I always will. There's references to the theme of the weather and timeline where he says, am I thinking about September, which must have been the breakup month. As we heard earlier, the breakup did happen in the fall when the leaves were changing. And there's a reference to Never Let You Go and Francis. In those, as I said earlier, he references his mom in those songs and telling his mom about this girl. And in this song, he says, am I lying to my mother that someday I'll find another? His mom really liked this girl, and he wants to give his mom hope that there'll be another one like that someday. There's also that theme of distance, both emotional and physical, when he says holding on from a distance. And he also does a meta reference to the deluxe album where he says, am I dragging this forever? Which brings us to the last song of the entire album, The Longest Goodbye.
And if this is my goodbye, it's been the longest of my life.
Which is, all in all, another meta reference to this very long, drawn-out breakup album. There's a reference to Forever and More. In Forever and More, he says, I've never felt like this before, can't pick myself above the floor. And in The Longest Goodbye, he says, a reason just to get off the floor. There's also that theme of distance, emotional and physical, again, where he says, now you're changing and moving, I'll take my ass to Houston. And between the silence and the mileage, the feelings you've been hiding. So they both reference this emotional change and emotional distance between the two of them, and also him wanting to leave physically to a different area of the country to continue to signify that emotional distance that's being wedged between them. There's also a few lyric changes. It goes from I don't think you love me anymore to I don't think I love you anymore to but I don't think I'll ever be so sure. And this is just supposed to show the storyline coming to a close. He's slowly growing into the fact that he also doesn't love her anymore, but he makes a painful realization when he says I don't think I'll ever be so sure, which to me means that he doesn't think he'll ever be so sure that he's found the one. And then there's a reference to the bar again, where the bar is finally closing, which yes, may mean just for the night, but it could also mean the bar is closing and he's not going to go back because the bar is just his healing place. Maybe. Anyway, that's all I have for the track by track analysis. I really loved doing this. I love this album so much. I think it's really, really well done, and I'm proud of how far he's gotten with his music making. I've always loved his music, but this project is definitely his most well-produced and well-written of any project he's had before, and clearly the numbers are doing well, and people are recognizing it the way they should. If you are watching this and you have only listened to this album of his, I highly recommend listening to the songs I've referenced here from his previous albums and EPs to understand this album more, and also his discography is amazing. It's well worth your time. But if you have any more thoughts on this album or any more ideas on references that I missed or themes that I might have missed or themes that you've come across in your own listening, please comment them. I would love to hear your perspective, and I'd love to talk about him again. So if you liked this, let me know, because I will do it again, and I will do it again and again and again. That's all I have. The bar is closing. Bye!